Good morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you might be joining us from. We're really excited to have you here today. We have a lot of content, so we'll go ahead and jump right into it. By way of introduction, my name is Zach Barbetta. I'm a senior product manager on the Amazon Pinpoint service. And today we're going to spend a lot of time talking about outbound customer connections through SMS. Really interesting topic. I think there's a lot of nuances of using SMS effectively, and we'll go through all of those today. So what does the agenda look like? So we'll spend the first 10 minutes or so just introducing the problems that AWS and Amazon Pinpoint can help solve for you. So we'll give a brief introduction to the Amazon Pinpoint service so everyone on this webinar has a good foundational understanding of what Pinpoint can do. From there, we'll dive deep into the SMS channel. So we'll talk about best practices, key features, and how to effectively use SMS across different use cases, right? There's a lot of transactional use cases, such as one-time password resets, as well as promotional use cases, such as sending reminders of flash sales. Third, we'll go into a demo. So I think it's really exciting to talk about what we see today in the PowerPoint presentation, in the webinar, and then taking that into the AWS console and actually showing you how to get started. And we can do that in as little as 10 minutes. So what I want to do today is provide you the content to understand how to get started and then actually show you. And then we'll open it up for a live Q&A. So if you have questions throughout this presentation, please jot them down towards the end. We have dedicated time for you to ask me and my colleagues questions. And I think that's actually the most exciting point of the webinar today is when I get to hear from our customers and prospective customers about what questions they have and maybe what content they'd like to see us produce next. So you'll leave today with a basic understanding of the AWS customer engagement services. You'll understand the core value prop of SMS as an engagement channel. And then you'll understand how to get started, where to get started, and how to do that easily. Great. So before we dive into an intro to the AWS services, I think one of the points I want to make sure that everyone on this webinar today appreciates and understands is businesses, of course, need to connect with their customers for a variety of use cases. But at the end of the day, they need to have these communication channels open to drive sales. Right? And these communication channels aren't just about SMS. Now that's the focus of today's webinar, but these communication channels are really every interaction the customer has with your brand. So they could be something as simple as how they interact with your brand on social platforms such as Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. It could be how they interact with your brand when they call in for support via the contact center. What's really important is that the customer has a consistent, personalized experience across all these communication channels. And those communication channels are complex, right? It's difficult to do one communication channel really, really well. Now, how do you do all of them? And that's what we aspire to help you do. And hopefully today you'll walk away with a deep understanding of how to do that over SMS. So some of the keywords that are on the slide that you're seeing now, this is where I spend a lot of energy. This is where our team spends a lot of energy. On this slide, the first and most important aspect is security. So we spend a ton of time thinking about how we can make sure that these communication channels, these interactions with your customers are secure. From there, we think about a lot of different use cases that our customers ask us to help them enable, such as speed, scale, data sovereignty requirements, the interoperability with the different tools. I have a lot of customers that come and say, hey, I'd love to use AWS and Amazon Pinpoint, but my teams have already adopted 13 other tools. So I spend a lot of time thinking about interoperability and how can we make it easy for you to plug in AWS to your existing technology stack. So today we're going to dive into, I think we'll touch actually on each of these, but we're really excited to really show you the power and support AWS can lend as you're thinking about the use case you're trying to enable for your customer. So before I jump into the services, I want to talk a little bit about the category. So AWS solves for the challenges on the previous slides through the customer engagement category, amongst others. So within the customer engagement category, there's 3 services today. First is Amazon Pinpoint. So that's the service that I'm a product manager for. We'll spend a few minutes discussing Amazon Pinpoint because that's how you enable SMS. The second is simple email service. So Amazon SES. an amazingly powerful service that allows customers to send billions upon billions of emails to their recipients. We won't discuss this today because it's not a core component of our topic, but there's plenty of information out there if you want to learn more about SES. The third AWS service in the customer engagement category is Amazon Connect. Amazon Connect is doing awesome stuff in the call center space. So if you or your colleagues or other teams within your company or business are thinking about cloud-based call centers and how to really serve the customer at their time of support, Connect is where you want to go. And again, similar to all AWS services, there's a lot of content out there for you to get building today. Next is built for availability. So as we'll get into more depth later in this slide deck, there are some pretty important compliance and regulation restrictions specific to really everything we do, but in particular SMS, right? That's today's topic. So the call out on this slide is, as you're thinking about SMS as a channel to build experiences for your customers that they want, it's important to think about where you need to be sending those SMS notifications from. And again, we'll get into more depth later in this slide deck because this is an important topic. Okay, great. So what is Amazon Pinpoint? So as mentioned at the top of this webinar, Amazon Pinpoint is a managed AWS service. And Amazon Pinpoint does a lot of things, and one of which enables you to send SMS. So specifically, our tagline is, we're a managed service for personalized user engagement across channels driven off analytics. And I'll stop here just for a minute to talk about personalized user engagement. What does that mean? So to me, and I think and I hope this resonates with everyone who's watching this webinar, to me, as a customer, consumer, right, I, like you, receive ads and notifications and emails every single day. And similar to you, right, I want things that are relevant. I want things that I find interesting. I want notifications at the right time. I want them timely. I want them specific to the task I'm trying to complete. So Amazon Pinpoint, and what I spend a lot of time doing is one, talking to customers, and then two, taking your feedback and building an AWS service that allows you to create those personalized engagement experiences. And that's because you know your customers, right? You know your business, your end users better than I. So if I can provide the service that supports those personalized engagements and you build those within the tool, then it really leads to sort of an effective experience for the end user, for the consumer, for you and me every day. So Amazon Pinpoint has 5 pillars, and what I'll do on these slides is I'll walk through an example that I often hear from customers. And I hope that example will let you tie it back to each of these pillars of the service. So first is user management. And what do I mean by user management? So let's assume that you have a website and your call to action on this landing page on the website is to have users sign up for SMS alerts. So you'll probably have a form, right? You probably ask certain information, first name, last name, email address, mobile number, and then you probably have some consent forms depending on their different regions and countries, your opt-in status. As your customers go through that form on your website and they click register, what Amazon Pinpoint does is it creates an awareness of that user. So we call that user management. So within Pinpoint, we call these endpoints. We say, okay, a new endpoint has been registered, and it has all these different attributes associated with it. And those attributes are the items I just described. So first name, last name, opt-in status, yes, no, mobile number, email address, right? This is all information that's really relevant for you and in your business. So Pinpoint manages that for you. The second part is audience management. So let's go back to our example. You've got a website, you get some really good press, and now all of a sudden hundreds and thousands and maybe millions of people are coming to the website and they're registering. And they're filling out the form, they're providing all these attributes. You now need a tool to understand the different cohorts, segments, audience, whatever term you use. You need to effective way to segment those into different discrete categories. And so Pinpoint enables you to do that as well, right? Pinpoint has a general understanding of the user. So if it has a general understanding of the user, and the associated attributes, it lets you now slice and dice up your customer base however you need to. So let's just kind of take our example one step further. Let's say that on your form, you have a field that says, what frequency would you like to receive an SMS? And you have every day, every week, every month, once a quarter. Your customers, let's say in this example, a subset of them select once a month and register. Now within Pinpoint, you can very quickly, with no code through the web-based console, or of course through the APIs, you can request all those users that have that attribute of 1 month frequency. So we make it really easy to understand your audience. And we also show you visually through the web-based console the different compositions. We're not going to get into that today because we're really focused on SMS, but again, a lot of content out there on how to effectively use the audience management and user management tools within Pinpoint. The third pillar is, as you can imagine, now that you have these segments, now that you have this discrete audience you want to engage with, it's how do you use that within different campaigns and journeys. So I say campaigns and journeys because those are two foundational pieces of Amazon Pinpoint. You can build campaigns, which are often one-time call to action, so send a certain message at a certain time to a segment of users. Or you can build journeys, and journeys are very similar to campaigns, but journeys transcend time. So you can have 7, 14, 30-day, whatever time frame you'd like. You can have these immersive journeys, and you can have different messages sent to different users based on different preferences over time. So really powerful capabilities there. When I speak to channels, I really think the two things for Amazon Pinpoint. One, managed channels. And two, unmanaged. So the managed channels are what you think they are. Email, push, SMS, voice. These are channels that Amazon manages for you. So we make it really easy to send push notifications, rich emails, SMS, voice. We make it really easy to do that. And on the unmanaged channels, we have a capability called Pinpoint Extensions, which you can use today to basically call a Lambda function and deliver a message to any channel you'd like. So we often call this bring your own channel. And I think a really simple example of that is if you want to send a message to your users over an unmanaged channel, such as Facebook, WhatsApp, Line, Weibo, Twitter, you can use Amazon Pinpoint to do that through the extensions feature. And I think that's an important call out because you want to, right? And our customers tell us they want to engage with their customers over the channel they prefer. So Amazon Pinpoint gives you that flexibility to look across the different channels and determine what's best for your business, what's best for the use case you're trying to drive. And the fifth pillar is analytics. So, you've often heard this term, which is sort of, bad data in is bad data out, good data in is good data out, and that's the same for Pinpoint. The better the analytics that we receive, so the more information about your customers, the more information about what they're doing in your web and mobile apps, the more quality data you put into Amazon Pinpoint, the better the user management and audience management and targeting tools become. So you can start to see this flywheel of really value that Pinpoint can add based on the more and more data that you provide the tool. So that's a brief overview of Amazon Pinpoint. And like I said, we're now going to focus mostly on SMS, but if you want to learn more about the analytics offerings or campaigns or journeys or targeting tools, all that content's there. Great, so now we're going to switch gears and dive a little bit deeper into the SMS channel, right? That's what we want to really understand today. So before we do that, I want to kind of answer a question that I often hear customers ask, which is SMS is dead, right? Like, no one's using that anymore. Everyone wants, web push or in-app or push or email or voice. Like, why is SMS important? So I think there's some data points that I want to share that I think are really, really interesting. So first is over 7 trillion SMS messages are sent every year. So it's a really effective communication channel. Over 6.1 billion people have an SMS-capable phone. So that's the chart you see to the right. And I think the call out here is we often think of smartphones, which of course have amazing penetration. I think there's over 2 billion devices out there. But think about some other markets where smartphones might not be as prevalent. SMS is, right? SMS is one of the most widely adopted, if not the most adopted channel out there. So over 6.1 billion people have the ability to receive an SMS. And then globally, what we found is nearly half of mobile users only use their phone for talk and text. So again, this sort of just reiterates the point that the SMS channel is really effective for reaching a broad audience. And then also, I think it raises a good point when you think about the demographics of your customer base. So, right, let's think about an application that might skew in an older demographic. Well, the older demographic might be more receptive to receiving SMS than going to the App Store and downloading the app and having to go into the application to take a certain action. So I think it's important to think about SMS specific to the different customers that you're actually trying to engage with. And then last, this is actually, I think, my favorite point, which is there's no education needed. And what do I mean by that? Well, it's just simple, right? And I think sort of one of the common tenets that I believe in as a product manager is keeping things simple, keeping things easy for customers to understand, and SMS is certainly that. So when you're thinking about using SMS in a variety of use cases that we'll get into in a few slides, I think it's an important point to keep in mind that it's just a really simple channel to leverage. Great. So what are some of the use cases? So I think the three major buckets that we talk about are one-time password, promotional, and transactional. And we'll go into more depth for each of these use cases when we go into the demo. But let's just briefly touch on each one. So one-time password. So let's go back to our example a few slides ago. Let's say you have a website, a landing page, and customers have registered and they provided all this information, and they love the offers that you're providing them. They love the notifications, they love the product, but they forget their password. So I imagine most of us on this webinar have gone through the experience where you've clicked the forgotten password button or the reset password button. And oftentimes you want to authenticate that the individual trying to access the account is who they say they are. And so one-time password is that use case there. It's sending the recipient a one-time password that then they use to authenticate the identity. So that's a very common and prevalent use case for SMS. So I think we probably all understand that one. There's probably a lot of folks on the call that are interested in understanding how AWS can help manage that for them. It's a very powerful channel for one-time password resets. And the reasons it's so powerful is some of the points I highlighted just on the last slide. So one, there's no mobile app needed, right? Everyone can receive that. Two, very low latency. So you get an SMS to a handset very quickly in most cases. And three, it's just very easy to do. So at the point that the customer's resetting the password and trying to authenticate their identity, they're trying to access your service or product, and that's the one point you want to make sure that you have a really crisp experience for them, so that they don't end up leaving the service. So the second use case is promotional. So as the name implies, this is SMS that's more oriented to a promotional call to action. So this could be something along the lines of reminding someone that a holiday is coming up and there's certain discounts, or that it's their birthday and there's a 50% coupon code available if they bring it in store. Promotional is exactly as the name implies. I think the one call out here, and again, I hope this resonates with everyone on the webinar, but you have to be very, very careful with promotional SMS from the end user experience. And what do I mean by that? Well, I'm sure a lot of us have received SMS that's unwanted, that's unwarranted. And that feels like a little bit of an invasion of privacy, right? The SMS inbox is very different than, let's say, the email inbox. If I had to guess, I would say the majority of folks in this webinar have an email address where they send a lot of the junk email, the spam email, the promotion email that they're not really interested in on a real-time basis. A lot of us, though, don't have a second phone number where we allow or accept this promotional SMS. So I think the one call out here is you really want to be really mindful of the end user experience when you're thinking about sending promotional messages. The third on the left-hand column is transactional. So these are SMS that are related to transactions. Think of your order deliveries, your appointment reminders, your bank transfer confirmations. These are SMS that require high deliverability, and the customer, in most cases, wants to receive that information immediately. So those are transactional workloads. On the right-hand side, you'll see a few features that Amazon Pinpoint has specific to the SMS channel. So I think the first is it allows you to manage your SMS spend. And really the call out here is when you think about engaging with your customers over the different channels, right? On the earlier slide, I said it could be push, an email, voice, SMS, or you could bring your own channel. When you look across those channels, SMS, more often than not, is the most expensive channel. So we provide the tools so you can allow your teams to set different caps on how much they want to spend so that you have that assurance that you're not going to accidentally have a runaway SMS bill. I think a second feature that I always like to call out, and we'll go into with a few slides from now, is the ability to comply with local laws and regulations. So this is really, really important. Amazon Pinpoint allows you to send SMS to over 200 different countries and regions. And you guessed it, right? Most of those different countries and regions have regulations specific to their country. And so you could try to figure out what those regulations are on your own. You could try to build a system that complies with all of those. But we think, and customers have told us, that they don't want to do that, right? They want AWS to manage that for them. And so Amazon Pinpoint does, right? Through our partners, our aggregators, and our telcos, we make sure that you're in compliance with the regulations that are stipulated by each specific country or region. So let's go a little bit deeper. There's a lot of terms associated with SMS, and it seems so simple, but I think it's really important to have a base understanding on some of the key terms before we go deeper. And again, this is a level 200 presentation, so we're not going to have flashcards at the end where we're going to try to memorize all these, and nor would I say that they're required for really understanding how to build the effective experience with SMS. But I think there's some key ones you want to understand, like application to person, person to person, MT, so message terminated, message originated, delivery receipts, sender IDs. These are all things that you want to have a base understanding of before you really dive in. So let's spend a little bit of time there. So mobile terminated SMS. So that's an SMS that is sent to a mobile phone. So think about when you send an SMS from Amazon Pinpoint to a mobile device. That's an MT. That's a mobile terminated SMS. The SMS is received by the mobile device and it stops there. So as you imagine, a mobile originated SMS is an SMS that's sent from a mobile phone. And this is probably what most of us on the webinar are familiar with today, right? That's you and me texting our friends and family. That's being originated from the mobile device. So we call that an MO. Next is a delivery report. So this is really important, particularly as you start thinking about monitoring the health of your engagement. Was it effective? Did people receive your notifications? Were there failures? The delivery reports help you understand that. So there's 3 primary statuses that are received back. And so Amazon Pinpoint surfaces these statuses to you so you can have a better understanding of what exactly is going on as you're sending notifications. So first is delivered to gateway, second is delivered to handset, and third is failed. And the third one, the failed one, I think is kind of the important call out there, because if you start seeing an increase in failure rates, I think that's when you should hit the pause button. You should try to understand, who am I sending it to? What is the use case? Am I following the best practices? Is there something going on, in the region or country that might be impacting this? The delivery reports are really helpful in understanding the effectiveness of your SMS. So next is the completion rate. So this is an OTP specific acronym, but the completion rate, again, is really important to that OTP use case. And so what exactly is the CR? So think of it as the percentage of SMS attempts that result in your customer providing the correct PIN. And I want to emphasize it's the moment that the customer authenticates correctly. That's what we're after. And so this CR, this completion rate, this provides a percentage of users that authenticate successfully. And again, really important, it might seem obvious, but really important to monitor that because you want to understand, one, what's the baseline? So when you start sending out one-time passwords, what's the threshold for success for your particular business? And then I think from there, you can then monitor and understand, is there any significant change in that completion rate over time that warrants investigation? So the CR is a really important component to the one-time password use case. Okay, great. So how does it all work? The long journey of an SMS. So I'm going to walk through a very simple example, but I think it's helpful context just to understand how an SMS gets from a handset all the way to another handset. So if you look at the map on your screen, you'll see a series of purple lines that just came across. And let's just walk left to right on what exactly happened. So on the left-hand side, you'll see that green circle with sort of the grayish outline. And that's someone sending an SMS from their handset. So you see in the bottom left corner, we have the story of Bob. Bob wants to send an SMS to his friend in India, so he pens out the SMS, he hits send. That SMS travels to Bob's carrier, in this case, Verizon. Verizon receives the SMS, and the first thing Verizon does is says, okay, where is this SMS going? It validates that it's going to India, and then it says, okay, well, we don't have a direct connection with India Airtel, so let's send it to a regional hub. So that's the top right circle in the North America map, and that's the regional hub. So the regional hub does something very similar to Verizon, receives the message, says, yep, India Airtel. Okay, how do I get it to India Airtel? Well, I don't have a direct connection, so let me send it to a global hub, and then sends it to the global hub. The global hub receives it, and for the third time validates it's going to India Airtel. It does have a direct connection with India Airtel, and then sends that SMS, and India Airtel handles the last mile delivery. So obviously this is an overly simplistic example of the journey of an SMS, but it gives you an idea, a general understanding of how something goes from A to B. Your consumers, myself included, right? We just expect SMS to work, but it's actually a really complex network of various aggregators and telcos and providers that all make it come together. And so when I say come together, this is a visual representation of what it looks like. And really the intent in this slide is to know or to acknowledge that SMS is complex. Right? There's different carriers for different countries. There's local aggregators. There's global aggregators. There's regional aggregators. There's a lot of different actors that play a role in ensuring SMS's delivery. And so Amazon Pinpoint, right, what we do is we try to take care of all of this for you. So this complexity that you see on this slide, right, you don't have to worry about that if you use AWS for your SMS, right? This is something that we manage for you. Great, so I want to also show just a visual, again, an overly simplistic visual of how it all works. So in the top left corner, you see Amazon Pinpoint, that's me in Seattle. And you see these dotted lines going to the right. So imagine those dotted lines basically being different connections to our great partners, whether they're the aggregators or the telcos. These are different connections that we have. And Amazon Pinpoint and our team is constantly looking at the different factors that impact price and deliverability. So you'll see sort of in the middle here the different percentages, 98%, 99, 73, 98, so on and so forth. We're always looking how to best optimize the flow of our traffic, so the SMS our customers want us to send on their behalf. We're always looking to optimize how to best get that SMS from point A to point B. How can we work with our different partners to ensure deliverability? And I think that's an important call out there. So for example, if we look at this third line here where there's 73%, what we're indicating there is 73% deliverability. So in this overly simplistic example, let's assume that SMS goes down that path. It wouldn't, because we would route it down a better path. But if it did, that would mean that 27% of SMS sent are never received on the handset. So if you have a specific call to action, let's say it's confirm identity because there's been a security breach with your application, or you want to confirm an appointment reminder or a bank transfer or whatever it might be, 27% are never going to be seen. So it's really difficult for you and your users, and frustrating, I would say, if 27% of the messages are never received. So one of the value propositions of using Amazon Pinpoint is we manage this for you, right? We ensure that we get your message to the best of our ability to the handset that it's supposed to be delivered to. So the bottom line that just popped up on the screen is Pinpoint always has 3 routes to reach a phone number, and we pick the route based on a variety of factors, looking at both cost and deliverability, right? We do this for you. We optimized our workloads to ensure that your user experience and your end user experience is what we'd want it to be. Great, so I'm often asked, hey, Zach, how come some of my messages didn't get delivered? This is a really important transactional SMS workload. Like, what happened? And there's a variety of reasons why, and here are just a few that I list. And you can imagine why there's a variety of reasons. It's because there's so many different hops that an SMS takes to ultimately be delivered to a handset. So sometimes routes are just down, right? Sometimes there's different issues with different providers and routes and paths that cause SMS to not make it there. Oftentimes, or I shouldn't say oftentimes, rarely, routes can be congested. So SMS can be dropped, and there's a variety of reasons that the routes can be congested. Message filtering. So as you'll see in a couple slides, certain countries have certain keywords that they'll filter out of messages. And again, this isn't a negative. I actually look at this as a positive because what everyone wants at the end of the day, everyone wants their customers, their end users, to be really happy with the engagement they receive. Whether it's a marketing message, whether it's a password reset, whether it's a transactional message, right? Everyone is aligned to building that best experience. So if there's certain keywords within messages that are notorious for diluting that experience or are nefarious in nature, our partners, in many cases because of regulation, will filter those messages out. Other reasons, phones turns off. Other reasons, right? If there's a political issue, that's goes back to really the message filtering part. We've seen that be the case where messages are dropped because of reasons there. So a lot of reasons. So just a real quick deep dive on some of the content specific to India. So we're not going to go through all this because there's a lot of content on the slide. The point of this slide, the macro takeaway is, the nuances of each market are managed for you by Amazon Pinpoint. So if you look in the top right corner, the forbidden content, right? That's at the direction of regulation. So we manage all the compliance and adherence to those. So you don't have to worry about that. And I think that's just kind of an important call out because it makes your life easier, right? You want to build the best experience for your customer. You don't want to worry about, the number of characters and if it's going to actually get there or be lopped off. For the states, similar, different regulations, different compliance, and different things that are supported. Again, we manage all that for you. So I just want to provide a few more explicit examples of some of the things that are solved by using the Pinpoint SMS functionality. So starting on the left, if you look at France, so France has a regulation that says certain SMS cannot originate from a standard number. So if you're sending to a French telco, Amazon Pinpoint will automatically switch to pre-approved delivery codes for you. So again, that's just one less thing for you to worry about. Going to the right, we look at Brazil. Brazil has a character limit of 157 versus the worldwide standard of 160. So Amazon Pinpoint will concatenate that message to make sure that it's fully delivered, right? We don't want to drop 3 characters of that workload. Going to the right, we see India restricts promotional messages from 9 p.m. to 9 a.m. Again, Amazon has functionality where we'll buffer those messages so that when the promotional messaging window opens, we can continue to send those for you. So again, these are very small things that are often overlooked, but at the time of execution, at the time of sending those notifications, become extremely important. Great, so now we're going to dive even a little bit deeper into some of the functionality of SMS, and we're going to talk about how you identify yourself to your customers, to your recipients. And there's really three primary ways: sender IDs, long codes, and short codes. And each have their advantage and disadvantage. So starting with sender IDs. So sender IDs are an alphabetic name that appears instead of a phone number. So when you think about it, when you receive a notification, an SMS, it's often from a phone number or often from a short code. But did you know you can have a sender ID that provides an alphabetic name? So in some countries, when Amazon sends SMS, right, it shows up as Amazon. Sometimes it shows up as AMZN. It's really dependent on the country. So the advantages of sender ID is it's just much clearer for the recipient to understand who's sending them that SMS, right? It takes a little bit of that cognitive load off of the recipient when they can take a glance and immediately know who's sending them what. The disadvantage is it's not supported in all countries, and the format isn't consistent across all countries. So for example, if you reside in the States, you're probably scratching your head saying, I've never received a sender ID SMS. That's because it's not supported in the States. So again, a really powerful way to build that connection with your customer, but not available everywhere. Next is dedicated long codes. So dedicated long codes are great in the sense that you can reserve a dedicated long code and it can only be used by you, by your brand, by your teams, really affordable. And so it creates that consistency with your customer. So I'll give you an example. Let's say you have a once a month reminder to your user base. Well, every month you probably want that message sent from the same long code, because your recipient, when they receive that, they can then scroll up and see the thread of all the different notifications you've been sending them. It creates that continuity. Some of the disadvantages of long codes, though, is they have limitations on the large volume of SMS. So what do I mean by that? Let's say you're a shipping or fulfillment company or an appointment reminder, and you have a high volume of SMS. Every morning or every hour or every minute, you're sending out thousands and thousands of SMS reminding people that their package is delivered, their transfer is complete, their appointment is tomorrow. Long codes have restrictions on the transactions per second, the TPS. So they're not best suited for that. So again, each of these ways has pros and cons. The third is dedicated short codes. So dedicated short codes are similar to long codes, but they're short, right, as the name implies. And the advantages are really twofold. One, for the recipient, it's very easy to see at a glance, a short code and understand who's sending it versus a long code, which has more numbers. More importantly, though, short codes provide you the volume that many of our larger enterprise customers require. Right? If you have a high volume SMS use case, more often than not, you need to procure short codes. And that leads to the disadvantages. So short codes have costs associated with them. And the costs, depending on the country, right, because short codes cost different per country, they can be, in some instances, substantial. So it's a consideration that you need to make during the planning and scoping phase of, are we going to need a short code? And if so, start the application process, because they take a long time to implement. When I say a long time, it varies, but it can be 6 to 8 weeks. And this is for a variety of reasons, but think about it really from the end user perspective. If you're ever confused when you're thinking about SMS, think about what's best for the end user, the recipient, and usually the rules and regulations and best practices will be aligned there. So since SMS allows you to send very high volume notifications, you have to register those. And we have to then register those with our aggregators and our partners and our telcos, so that everyone in that chain, if you will, has a general understanding of what's going to come. And again, that's just to protect the recipients, right? The last thing anyone wants is recipients to start receiving spam SMS. And then the fourth, and this is really a subset of dedicated short codes, this is shared short codes. So this is a group of numbers that are shared with other Amazon Pinpoint users. So the advantage to you is there's no extra steps and no extra cost. However, some of the disadvantages is you can't specify which number to use when you send your SMS. So I think the important call out there is a lot of my customers I talk to, right, they want to build that continuity. They want to build that trust. They want to build that relationship with the recipient. And when you start sending SMS from different phone numbers, and this isn't specific to just SMS, right? If you send from different emails, or if you call from different numbers, or if they interact with a different person every time they call into your support, right? If you start to erode that continuity, it just gives, I think, a moment of pause for the recipient. So that's one of the disadvantages with shared short codes. But as mentioned earlier, both have their pros and cons, or all sender IDs, long codes, and short codes have their pros and cons. Great, so I want to jump into the demo. That was a lot, and again, to my point earlier, I think seeing is believing, so I'm really excited to show you just how easy it is to get started. So what are we going to do? So basically, I'm going to go into the Amazon Pinpoint console, and I'm going to show you exactly the flow that you would see. I'm going to procure a long code, so that happens instantaneously. It's neat. And then with that long code, I'll enable two-way SMS. So we haven't talked much about two-way because it's a more advanced use case, but Amazon Pinpoint makes it really easy to define keywords within the Pinpoint console, and then based on those keywords, programmatically send responses. So I'll enable the two-way channel, and then I'll set a couple keywords, and if you're interested, you can then send a text message to that long code, and that long code will see the keyword that you sent, and it will programmatically respond. If you're watching this at a later date, it should still work with you unless I exceed my limit, and I'll show you how to set your limit through the console as well. So while I'm switching screens to get into the Amazon Pinpoint console, a quick shout out to another webinar we did earlier this week. This is a 300 level SMS chatbot, so it builds on what we talked about today. But if you're interested in learning how to build a chatbot with Pinpoint, Lex, and Lambda, simply scan that QR code or search Google with those terms as you see, and you'll see that webinar. So I'm going to go ahead and switch to my console, and we'll start the brief demo. So what we see here is this is my Chrome browser, and this is the AWS Management Console. So for those of you that aren't familiar with AWS, this is where you go to find different services and build certain applications. So as you can imagine, we're going to look for Pinpoint, and we're going to start our SMS demo. So when I click Pinpoint, the first thing I'm going to see is this screen here. So I've got a few projects because I've practiced this demo before, but what you'll see is nothing. You won't have any projects, so you'll have to start here. This is the create a project button. So let's do that. So we're going to say live webinar SMS demo, and we're going to create it. Okay, awesome. So now we've created a Pinpoint project, and here is where you configure the features of Amazon Pinpoint. So as you can see, there's a lot of functionality, a lot of which we covered earlier. So here's how you set up email. Here's how you set up push notifications. Here's how you set up your app analytics, your web analytics. A lot of great stuff here. Of course, we're going to focus on SMS and voice. So let's go and configure it. So, as I mentioned, with one click, I can enable the SMS channel for this project. So I've clicked enable, now I've clicked save, so I guess that's actually 2 clicks. And now we've enabled sending SMS through Amazon Pinpoint. It really is that easy. Specific to what I mentioned on the last slide, we want to do a two-way SMS. So I'm going to go to settings. I'm going to go to SMS and voice, and here's where I control all the settings specific to the SMS and voice channel. So I want to highlight a few things here. So first, channel status enabled. So that's what I just did a few seconds ago. I basically authenticated with Pinpoint and said I want to send SMS. Pinpoint acknowledged that and said you're ready to go. Here, the default message type is promotional. So this is by default, and you can simply click Edit to change. But if you recall earlier in this webinar, there's really 2 primary use cases, promotional and transactional. Depending on what you're building, you'll want to change this accordingly. Account spending limit, this is one of the features that Pinpoint manages for you. So you can specify a spending limit. You can also request a spending limit increase here. Again, a best practice is to think 3 to 5 weeks in advance on what you want to enable and when you want to enable so that you can request the appropriate short codes, long codes, and limit increases. Again, sender IDs, we covered that on the last slide. That's just an optional way to identify yourself to your recipients. So if I scroll down, here's where I see all the numbers that I have, my number settings. I have two long codes that I've already provisioned, but I want to show you again what the first time user experience would look like. So I'm going to click request a long code. I'm going to scroll down. I'm going to say United States. I'm going to specify that it's transactional. The default limit is $1. And then I'm going to request a long code. Great. So in a couple clicks, I have successfully added one new phone number. I'll scroll down, and now you see 3 numbers here. Awesome. So it is that easy to get started, but we want to do two-way SMS. And I think two-way SMS is really neat because it's the precursor, right? It's the start to building a conversation with your customers. And the conversation with your customers are important because we think of text messaging, of SMS, as really being a bi-directional channel, right? It's a great channel to have a conversation with your customer. I mean, think about it relative to push notifications. You can't really have that dialogue. Similarly with email, you can, but there's the lag. So what I want to do here, I click the long code. I want to click two-way SMS, and then I'm going to simply define the support for two-way SMS and the certain keywords. So great. So here you see I have a keyword already established. So I put in EBC, and this can be anything. And the response message would be and is, if you sent an SMS right now to that long code, we hope you had a great experience at the AWS EBC Center. To leave feedback, click this link. So let's change this up though. Let's say we want the keyword to be something along the lines of just the number 1. And then we wanted to add additional keywords. Let's say it's number 2, number 3. And then we want to say, thanks for, so let's first go back to a use case. Let's say that you send a message to your customer that says, respond 1 with help from customer support. Respond with the number 2 for help from sales. Respond from number 3 for support from marketing. Whatever the use case might be, you simply define these keywords here, 1, 2, and 3. And then you just define the response message. So thanks for reaching out to the sales team. What can we help you with today? And similarly, for the other response messages, you can define them however you'd like. So let's say it's marketing here, and let's say it's customer support here. And then let's go ahead and click Save. So what I've done with this long code, so this is the number here, and if you'd like to try this at home, you can send 1, 2, or 3 to this long code, and you'll automatically receive a message back. And so again, this is an overly simplistic use case, but the idea here is you can build really immersive experiences. And when your customer sends a message back, right, there's this functionality here. This functionality here allows you to take that response message and send it to an SNS topic. And we won't go into the details of the SNS topic, but think of it as a way to be alerted when someone responds to your SMS. So in this example, we have 3 different keywords. Keyword number 1, 2, and 3. And we have different call to actions: sales, marketing, and support. What you could do is when customers reply with 1, 2, or 3, you could send this to an SNS topic, and that SNS topic can more or less look at the message body, look to see if there's a 1, 2, or 3, and then route that to an agent within marketing, sales, or support. So it really is that easy to begin to build experiences that are better for your customer. So that is the brief demo. I think I did it less than 10 minutes of how to get started by procuring a long code, setting an SMS keyword, and starting to build that bi-directional experience with your customer. There's of course a lot more in the SMS and voice channel that we didn't have time to cover today, but I think a few things just to quickly call out. Requesting a shortcode is as simple as clicking this and filling out the appropriate form. You can configure and manage your own opt-outs if you like. If you don't, then there's default keywords such as help and stop that Pinpoint manages for you, so that Pinpoint will automatically reply with the default message. So that concludes today's webinar. I'd like to thank you all for joining. I hope you got out of it the 3 things that I highlighted at the top of the call, which which is a base understanding of the customer engagement AWS services, a more in-depth level 200 understanding of the SMS channel, some of the nuances of the channel, how it all works, and some of the features that Amazon Pinpoint has built for you. And then third, the quick and easy way to get started by simply logging into the console and building an SMS experience. With that, we'll turn to the Q&A portion of the webinar. Looking forward to your questions. My contact information is below if you'd like to reach out directly. And have a great rest of your day. Thanks for joining.